God, it's broken! It's broken!
Maybe the next game we can play at is Goat Simulator.
God, it's broken! It's broken!
Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night. Welcome back to SAFRL Tier 2. It's round 6 of Season 7. And we're at Zandvoort. Of course, if you watched on Monday night, weather played a role. Let's see what happens tonight. Of course, quite a tricky circuit, 4.2 kilometers, 72 laps, half of that for the 50%. 327 kilometers an hour top speeds, 14 corners, and very little in the way of elevation change. What makes up for it is undulation. Going all the way back to 1982, Patrick Tambay getting past Nelson Piquet into turn 1. Patrick Tambay would go on to finish in P8, Nelson Piquet P2. More recent times, 2021, Ocon taking on Alonso, and Alonso saying none of that. Even more recent, 2022, Mick Schumacher going up against Sebastian Vettel, and this battle just ensuring that that friendship continues. Lots of space given from both. Of course, drivers will have 3 compounds available to them, the soft, the medium and the hard, and if we have a repeat of Monday, the inters and the wets will be on standby. Are you ready? Drivers are ready. I think we're about to get underway. Welcome to qualifying. Obviously just Q1, that's how we do things here. Just the 18 minutes for everybody to get around. Not the largest field, just the 13 drivers. So lots of drivers with the opportunity of collecting points. Starting to see a trend of smaller grids. That tends to happen in the last month or two of the game being around. Of course, we'll be moving on to the unknown pretty soon. Already have a few drivers out on track. Skull is one of them in the Williams. Of course, Monday the race was done in the wet throughout. Ace of pace. Chosen the intermediate. Why not? Have some fun. Tyler Boy in the pits. Looks like this man here is the first on a quick lap. Let's ride on board with the Alfa Romeo. See how things look. is definitely draining the battery, so this is a fast lap attempt. Probably going to be the first man to go over the line, so he'll go purple. Maybe just briefly. We've been hoping for no rain. Well, we didn't see that coming on Monday, but come the race, there it was. Looking at the clouds, there's a maybe. Of course, if there's any drivers in the chat, let me know. Give me confirmation. You guys get a little weather there. It might not be the most reliable, but I get nothing. So let me know if there's any weather to worry about in the race, whether it's the entire race or just a short period in the race. The toy goes over the line, first lap of the evening. 1:10.7. Tidy Boy remains in the pits. Skull out on circuit. Moller out on circuit. Busy racetrack. Maggot, Spikes, Ace of Pace. Andres goes fastest. 1:09.5. He takes half a second out of Detoy's initial benchmark. Skull about to go over the line. Goes up into P2. 1:10.6. Those three cars separated by... I read that wrong. So those three cars are separated by, is that 3/10? Tiley Boy still in the pits, leaving things very, very late. Moller going around the banking onto the main straight. About to go over the line. Slots in just behind his teammate, and those Alfa Romeos have been so close. Look at those. Look at those times. 900ths of a second cover the two Alfa Romeo teammates. They're in 6th and 7th. Another Ferrari powered car. The Ferrari powered car is on provisional pole. Andres would love things to stay that way. Tyler Boy remains in the pits. I believe he has a quali ban. Yes, I remember reading that earlier. So that will explain why there has been no movement from the one Mercedes garage. He will be starting from the rear of the field and eager to get on with it. We have a Ferrari limping back to the pits. The other Ferrari on provisional pole. Andres getting pushed back into the pits. He's done enough for now. Maggot out on track. Currently in P2. Spikes returns to the pits. In P4, have a Haas, Rockwell, 110.3. Times continue falling. Time you did on the previous run may have been decent. It's not going to be decent by the time these guys are done with their second run. Times keep on coming down. The more these guys spend on circuit, the more they get used to the conditions. Even if you have practiced before the race, you may have been practicing with a heavy fuel load, doing a few laps like that. Now the car is, well, it's on its ultimate edge, and if you get anything wrong, you're just not going to get that lap time, because these laps are close. Make any sort of mistake, it's going to send you to the rear of the field. It's not really where you want to start. I've seen at this circuit examples on this channel that turn 1 in Zandvoort can be quite traumatizing, especially if it's in the wet. Hopefully we have a less eventful turn 1 than we had on Monday night. Just a bit of action at the back, but you've got to forgive the guys. It's terrible conditions, and it remained that way for the entirety of the race. It was qualifying, and there are a few clouds about. We don't know how that will translate to the race. Skull currently a 110.1, getting really close to the 109s, but not close enough. Rockwell P7. Guys who had a decent time, decent position not so long ago. Now that Ace of Pace P10. Rockstar looking for his first timed lap of the evening. And then the second Ferrari also looking for his first timed lap of the evening. That first run, didn't see what happened, but it ended in disaster because he had absolutely no wing remaining on that car. So Ferrari's come out again. He's done an outlap. This is his second attempt at a quick lap. I've been calling him Gotzi. I was told his name is Katozi. I don't know which one to call him. I don't know. It just feels more natural to call him Gotzi. I've been calling him Gotzi for so long. Currently at the rear of the field. Obviously Tali Boy will also not set a lap. So he just needs to set a lap to not start in last place. I don't think he's aiming for P12. Wants a little bit higher than that. And with his teammate at the top of the field, or at least in the top two, Maggot has gone into provisional pole. We watch Katozi as he goes around the banked corner, over the start finish line, does get that first lap, and it's a decent lap. It's a 110.1, goes up into P5. Both Ferraris in the top 5. But Andries is going to have to go back out, and he's going to have to find, well, he's going to have to find about half a second if he wants to take back his pole position. For now, Andries is out on circuit. Got awfully close to that car. I don't know if this is a quick lap. That will have definitely affected things. Seems like the car did get off track. Obviously it's always distracting. And you think you might just run into somebody. There might just be a lift. As small as it may be, it's a lift that shouldn't be there. Sometimes you notice it in the lap time. We'll soon find out. Andries goes over the line and it didn't distract him enough because he goes at 109.3. It's good enough to take provisional pole right back. And Maggot's going to have to come back out of the pits and find an immediate improvement. Mola in P7 on another run. Interesting strategy he's running there with the tires. Well, if you've got a screen in front of you, you can see why I'm saying that. I'm not gonna say it because maybe he's pulling some kind of strategy. Don't wanna ruin it for him. Andries still at the top. Maggots still in P2, and I was gonna say still in the pits. But he's on the pit exit, and he almost ran into, what was that, a Williams? I think he almost ran into a Williams. There was a stationary Williams at the end of the pit exit, and it almost collected the man who's challenging for pole position. Spikes also in the pits. These two out front got 109.3s. Very close lap times for the front row. Then there's a bit of a drop. 109.8, half a second back to Spikes. He remains in the pits. Then Boinkies, a 110 flat. And he's followed by Chums also on a 110 flat. Then we have, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 cars on a 110-1. So times are incredibly close. You've got to be on it. You've got to be absolutely on it. And if you get anything wrong in that lap, when a field is this close together, one mistake is enough. That's why sometimes we see so many cars just peeling off back into the pit lane. They know there's no longer a point. The lap is gone. This is Maggot. Current best is a 109.3. Oh, so close to provisional pole, but not quite. Something like 18 thousandths of a second. Of course, we have had occasions where drivers get identical lap times. Seen it in qualifying. most of the time by the end of the session those have been cancelled out. Sometimes they happen on the first run, second run, and by the end of the session they're gone. Of course, in F1, the record for identical times is three drivers on the grid got identical times, and that was at Jerez 1997, the European Grand Prix. Maggot takes back that position and finds 2/10, goes into a 109.1. Very nicely done. How does Andries respond? He sits in the pits. Spikes still in the pits. Boinkies in the pits. Chums emerging from the pits. Just over 4.5 minutes remaining. Guys leaving it late. Going for that final run. If anybody's been sandbagging, you're about to find out. I once had a teammate, and actually he was my teammate for multiple seasons, and I have no idea why, because he was a terrible teammate. And that's not because he was a bad driver. He was a fantastic driver. I was a terrible driver. He was carrying the team. But this guy would never tell me how fast he was. We would practice throughout the week, maybe 2 or 3 practice sessions leading up to the race. And I'd be 2 or 3 tenths slower than him, and he's like, "You're doing really well." And we'd get to Q3, and well, truth would reveal itself. Always fun when your teammate refuses to share data with you. Probably it wouldn't have helped me, but I like to pretend it would have. A lot of drivers in the pits. Still 3.5 minutes remaining. We've got 4 cars out on track. All 4 of those cars on outlaps. Spikes, Andries, I think it's Spikes. Spikes is going to be the first man over the line to have his second attempt. Maybe it was Chums. Looks like Chums is just behind Spikes. So Spikes will be the first man to have his final run. The Aston Martin currently in P3. If the checkered flag were to fall now, he'd start at the head of the second row, but he'd love to get himself onto the front row. Problem with that is he's going to have to find himself half a second to get himself into P2. To get himself into P1, well, he's going to have to find himself 0.8 of a second. Does he have more in his pocket? How much more does he have, and does he have that much? Sounds like a bit of a stretch. Spikes is up for the challenge, and as you can see by the track map, he's most definitely up for the challenge. He now goes around a stationary Williams. He was quickest in sector 2, purple sector. See how that translates into sector 3. Is he able to carry through on that lap? Does he improve? Does he take pole? He doesn't take pole, but he does improve. It's a 109.2. Got awfully close to that 109.1. Thought it was going to be quite a stretch, but he almost got there in the end. Now all of those cars that were sitting in the pits, now they're on an outlap. So we might have a crowded lap for that final run. Hopefully everybody manages their outlap well. Make sure they have optimal space. Don't want to be running into anybody. And if everybody is at quali pace, you only have yourself to blame for running into anybody. Make sure you have the space on this outlap. And if you have a driver that's known to be extremely quick right on your gearbox, just let him go. He's going to destroy your fast lap, and you're going to make him very mad. Maggot, this is your pole sitter. He's coming out to defend that lap. Obviously Spikes improved, went to a 109.2, but he went out of sync with the rest of these guys. So he's already done his lap. He's back in the pits. We're not going to see any more action from him in quali. Andries is out on track. He needs to find 2 or 3 tenths and he could go into pole. But Maggot's out there to defend this lap and to improve on this lap and to try and give us the first 108 of the evening. If we do get a 108, what do you think we're going to get? A 108? How deep into the 108s? What if we just miss the 108s and we get a 109 flat? Seems like he's backed off completely. Where is Andries? Andries is still out there. What's his lap looking like? He's in sector 1. Let's keep our eyes on the Ferrari. He's currently in P3. He hasn't gone purple in sector 1, but he did get a personal best. That was again the wrong button. There we go, Ferrari. He's also backed off. Who else is out on track? Rocco's out on track. He's got no battery. He's backed off. There's a Red Bull out on track. He's backed off. He's got no battery. And I think that may be the session. Yeah, Andries definitely just going around slowly. Checkered flag has fallen. And that, I believe, is that. What a qualifying session. If you look at those times, sure there's a gap here and there, but overall look how close those lap times are. If you look from, well, pretty much from Chums in P4 down to Detoy in P10, you're looking at 3/10 of a second. That's the difference between P4. Actually, Detoy is in, yeah, P10. Difference between 6 positions in qualifying, 3/10 of a second. And there are your official results. Obviously, Maggot taking pole position, 109.1. Then Spikes P2, Andries and Chums, they're on the second row, followed by Boinkies and Moller P5, P6. Gotzi or Gattosi in P7, Skull P8, Ace of Pace P9, and Detoy making up the top 10. Obviously just the 13 runners. The 3 drivers outside the top 10 are Rockwell P11, Victory Star P12, and Tylee Boy not setting a lap because of his quali ban. Obviously now we head off to the race. This is what counts, and surely not. Death Queen. I'm blaming Death Queen, okay? Because you did the little pray emoji, no rain, don't. Yeah, I'm blaming. Yeah, the stream's a little bit behind. You haven't seen this yet, but when you do, I blame Death Queen. It feels like deja vu. It feels like somebody messed with the settings, but we have exactly the same scenario that we had on Monday night. We had a qualifying that looked okay. There were a few clouds about, but nothing looked too serious. No threat of rain. The start of the race comes. Oh, goodness. We wait for the 5 red lights. They're gonna go off, and we're gonna be off. It's going to be an Alpine versus an... I got that wrong. Or is my timing screen wrong? Oh wow, what's going on with my timing screen? Folks, I have a broken timing screen. This is going to be fun. So Maggot leads the way, Spikes P2, Andries P3. Yes, Ace of Pace is showing in the lead, but that is not where he is. So we are going to have quite the eventful evening. If I can't read, there we go. Hopefully that's corrected itself. Ace of Pace now falling down the field. For some reason he was in the lead, but Maggot leads the way. Spikes in P2, Andres P3, Chums P4. Most of the drivers holding on to the positions they started in. Moller P5 followed by Boinkies P6. Then we have Detoy. He's already made up a lot of positions. Remember, he started in P10. He's up in P7. Ace of Pace, after being corrected in the timing screen, now down in P8. Katozi P9. And Skull making up the top 10. P11 for Rockstar P12. And Tiley Boy, well, he's only gone backwards. Unfortunately, he would have liked to have gotten a really good start, but I think he's just struggling in the rain. Some drivers just don't have a lot of track time in the rain. They don't do that amount of practice. Even the drivers that do a lot of practice and dedicate a lot of time to the game, when they compare their dry running to their wet running, there's simply no comparison. We have a caution around the circuit. Hopefully that's all it is, but it is a full caution, and now we have a safety car, virtual safety car. This is awfully like Monday night's race. I think, not saying the positions of the drivers, but we also had a virtual safety car very early on in the race. So Maggot leads the way. Spikes making up a position now up into P2. Andres down into P3. Chums remaining in P4. Moller coming under pressure from what I believe is an AlphaTauri. That's Boinkies in P6. If Monday night is an example, we're going to see a race where there isn't as much overtaking. Sometimes see cars follow for an awfully long time. Guys are a little bit more tentative on the brakes. Guys are a little bit more tentative on those dive bombs. They don't have the same confidence they do in the dry. They simply don't have enough track data as to where the limit of that car is in the wet, as they would in the dry. In the dry they know exactly how much they can push that car. In the wet, you sort of got to tiptoe. And for some of these drivers, that's just not their driving style. For Maggot, he's doing great. Leads the way. Gap is 1.3 seconds. Spikes P2. Just right on board with one of these drivers. Have a look at these conditions. Are they lightening up in any way, or lots of spray? And the conditions look to be the same. Don't see any real improvement. And if we do have a repeat of Monday, well then these conditions aren't going away. That was probably the first example of a race that I have commentated on that was wet from start to finish. I have no memory of the previous time that happened. That was... I really thought it was going to get dry at some point. These guys will be hoping it goes dry at some point. Maggot, fastest lap of the race, he's out front and he's just extending that gap. Spikes in P2, but he's not able to reel that leader in. He's coming under pressure from the Ferrari. Got past Andres, but he hasn't been able to shake him off. Andres still on the back of the Aston Martin. Chums has lost contact now with the top three, just starting to fall back and falling into the clutches of Moller. But Moller's got more to be worried about than what's up the road. Needs to be worried about what's almost side by side with him. Boinkies pushing that Alfa Romeo to the limit, making sure the Alfa Romeo mirrors are full, just letting Moller know he's there. But I assure you, he already does. The AlphaTauri looks in his mirrors. It's going to be deja vu. He's just going to see another Alfa Romeo. There's one in front of him, there's one behind him. He wants to get out of this sandwich. He'll feel he's been in there a little too long. Then towards the rear of the field we start to see some pretty big gaps. Skull P9, Gotzi 2.5 seconds down the road in P9. Then Rockwell P10, another 2.5 seconds, 5.5 seconds down the road for Tylee Boy. So some pretty big gaps at the rear of the field. And not something you hear every day. Making up the rear of the field, the two Red Bulls. Doesn't even feel natural to say. In fact, the AlphaTauris are flying the Red Bull flag. The only Red Bull with a point. How would Helmut Marko feel? I think Red Bull's got enough problems right now. They're being outperformed by their junior team. Maggot leads. And what's interesting here is he was increasing that gap, and he was increasing that gap quite nicely, quite quickly. Now Spike's just starting to reel him in a little bit. I wonder if that was just a mistake. That was some error on Maggot's behalf. We'll soon find out if that gap starts to expand again. If it's able to just stabilize. If Spikes can continue to reel him in. But if you look at the gap, it is starting to expand again. Maybe he just did make a little mistake. Very easy to do in these conditions. Of course, here in Zandvoort, there's also a lot of grass on the side of the circuit. In these conditions, a tire on the grass, that can be the end of everything. And if you're on a MotoGP bike in the wet, touching a curb could be the end of everything. Touching anything painted could be the end of everything. So you pretty much want to stay off those white lines. As crazy as MotoGP riders are, they still hit the curbs. Maggot leads, Spikes P2, Andres P3, Chums P4. Those top four have remained constant. May have changed positions once or twice, but same names. Chums has held on to P4, he's made it his own. 3.5 seconds down the road from the podium finishes, and he's got a 3.5 second gap to the car behind him, so he's having a race all of his own. The toy is currently in P5 and he's followed by his teammate Moller. Moller also followed closely by Skull. Let's ride on board with one of these guys to have a look at the conditions. And well, that's clear as day. That's we're not going to have a repeat of Monday night. This seems to be improving. I wouldn't say jump on the dryers just yet, but there we go, jump on the dryers, folks. It's DRS enabled. That happened awfully quickly. There's still a bit of spray on the track, but according to that, we can jump onto the slicks and get on with it. It's not going to be a repeat of Monday night. We're not going to have a full wet race. Just had a short stint. And this will be interesting. What will the guys do? What does this do to their strategies? You're going to have to pit. What tire do you select? Are they going to come out on hards? Are they going to go for something quicker? Something that's easier to get tire temperature when the track is going to be so cold? It's going to be interesting to see what these drivers do next. Of course, when you just have a full wet race and you don't get any safety cars, the field just naturally spreads out according to the driver's individual pace. You're not going to get an extremely close race the entire race. But now we have DRS back enabled. The only man that came into the pits was Ace of Pace. He's gone for the hardest compound available, the white wall tyre. Chums comes into the pits, also the white wall tyre. Spike's going for something different, choosing the medium. Still a lot of drivers out on track on the intermediate. I assume when they come around again, they'll be getting off that. As for your leader, he's still happy with the inter. Let's see what he does this time around. Basically the top 5 cars now on the intermediate tyre, the rest of the field, with the exception of Rockstar, in P12. And Rockstar's also just jumped. Now, it wouldn't have given them too much of an advantage, the guys that jumped on dries. Even if this is dry conditions, they would have only got about half a lap with those dry tyres before the leaders came in. And obviously the track won't be absolutely optimal for the slicks. It will be there in a couple of laps, but for this first lap, just need to be watchful. Maggot will come out of the pits. Will he still be in the lead? Surely he will. Unless those dry tyres hit the track and went absolutely crazy, but surely that's not the case. There we go, Maggot comes out in the lead. Spikes, exactly the same strategy. Both cars on the medium, except for Spikes. Did it first, so he's going to have 1 lap older on his tyres. Could be crucial later on, but this is very early on in the race, so this will not be the only pit stop. Surely they'll all pit again. The runners on hards, they're going to go as deep as they can and maybe finish on the soft. Medium runners, not sure what their plan is. If you know in the comment section, let me know. Quite a few viewers tonight. Tells you the quality of the racing. Quality of the racing is bringing the viewers back every week, and it's so great to see. Channel numbers are becoming quite consistent. A lot of people returning to watch videos over and over. And of course we get about 60% of our views after the live broadcast. So all of the drivers also showing their support for the stream. Maggot leads the way, 0.7 of a second. I didn't notice that, but Andres, he was one of those top 3 drivers that had been in the top 3 for the entirety of the race. He's the only one of those top 3 that decided to go in and take a set of soft tyres. Now, problem for him is he's 5 seconds adrift, almost 6 seconds adrift from Spike, so he's going to need the advantage of those tyres just to catch up to the top 2. And by the time he gets there, he may have taken a lot of life out of those and lost his advantage. So I wonder if Andres just left it too late to get those softs. Maybe should have gone a lap earlier, I'm not sure, but he has fallen. He was pretty close to the top. He was in the top 3 and he was very close in that battle. Now he's fallen adrift. 5.2 seconds. Rocco P9. Tozy making up the points. That's the second Ferrari. Tylee Boy started in P13 of 13. Started last. He's almost in the points. He's in P11, but he's going to have to do a lot of work to catch the driver up the road from him. Almost 7 seconds. Ace of Pace P12. And then Rockstar just not having the day he would have hoped for. I think that Red Bull will just drive right past their pit garage and avoid helmet marker completely. 2 drivers out front are Maggot and Spikes. There is a bit of a gap between them now, 1.5 seconds between the 2. Both of those drivers on identical strategies, both medium tyres, except for Spikes has a set of tyres that will be 1 lap older. Don't know how crucial that will be. It really comes down to how the drivers manage their tyres over the duration of this stint. Andres in P3, he is closing the gap. It's now 4.5 seconds to the top 2. What will those soft tyres look like by the time he catches Spikes, and will he be able to challenge when he does? Chums in P4, Detoy P5, Skull P6. Then we have Moller. Moller and Skull have actually just traded places. There we go. Moller back up into P6 just behind his teammates. Skull demoted to P7. Then the remainder of the points paying positions. P8 Boinkies, P9 Gotzi, and P10 Rakwa. It's a lot of work to do to get into the top 10 for Tylee Boy. then a further 12 seconds behind Ace of Pace. And Rockstar hoping for a safety car to keep him on the lead lap, which is a similar situation to what I had on Friday night when I drove the race. I was so happy to finish on the lead lap. The only way I finished on the lead lap is just before I was about to be lapped by the leader, there was a safety car. So, yeah. But I was still happy. So when these guys complain about being a few tenths off, I celebrate finishing races. No change at the front. Maggot, Spikes, Andres. That gap is still closing. Don't know if it's closing as fast as the Ferrari driver would like. 3.5 seconds now. Chums continues to fall adrift from the top 3. Detoy is followed by his teammate, but those Alfa Romeos are no longer that close to each other on track, 2.5 seconds apart. Moller does have a Williams behind him, as he has for most of the race. Then Boinky's P8, Gotzi P9, and it's still Rockway in P10. No real changes at the back because the gaps at the back are pretty big. Great helicopter shot. Just wish we could control it, be able to switch it on whenever I wanted to. It's just a random game camera, and be great to have more shots like that. Maggot, 2 seconds is the gap, so the gap isn't expanding beyond belief, but gotta wonder if he's just managing it, wants to take these mediums longer than what his pit window may suggest. Maybe trying to do something different, just manage the tires, but he is just keeping that gap at 2 seconds. Every time it goes down a bit, he brings it back to 2 seconds, and he doesn't really extend it past there. Let's have a look. Spikes, 1.7 seconds the gap now. There you see 1.8, 1.7, just hovering. And I wonder if he's just maintaining that gap, or if Spikes is finding pace somewhere as we approach the halfway point in this race. Had all sorts. Obviously we started in the intermediate conditions, as we did on Monday. Difference was Monday we had an entirely intermediate race. Dried up pretty quickly, dried up around lap 7. Guys came into the pits, put on dry tires, have a bit of a mix between the mediums and the hards, just 2 drivers selecting the soft. And as we go into this race, we'll see what the strategy holds next, for surely none of these cars can finish on this set of tires, so everyone will have to pit again. That gap at the front, still 2.1 seconds. It's not really getting smaller, it's not really getting bigger, so either somebody is managing their tires, and that should probably be the leader, or these guys have incredibly comparable pace on a consistent basis. We have a look at the fastest laps. Maggot's quickest lap is a 1:12.2. Spike's quickest lap is a 1:12.6. But the fastest man on circuit, Andres, 1:11.8. And all of that is about to become irrelevant, because folks, what can I say? We have a safety car. This changes everything. Andres into the pits. Those soft tires, just 6 laps old, but he wants nothing more to do with them. Comes into the pits to get rid of the soft compound. I think he knows by the end of the safety car those tires are going to be 9 laps old, and he's probably going to have to get rid of them pretty soon anyway. And by that time, safety car will have brought this entire queue together, and he'll emerge at the rear of the field. So he dives into the pits to get it done now, try and minimize the damage. And he has been able to minimize the damage because he's come out in P4. And considering the field will be together at the restart, being in the top 4, not a bad position. Getting a free pit stop. Still a long way to go in the race. I'm not yet at half distance. So surely a set of mediums cannot take you to the end. There are a few drivers that came in and got a brand new set of hards. I think you could take a set of hards to the end. 20 laps on the hard compound. Can you do 20 laps on the medium compound? Let me know. Of course, I've got nothing to compare it to from Monday night because we spent the whole night on intermediate. Except for one driver, I forget who he was. He left the lobby ever so briefly. But in that short 3 to 5 minute stint that he left the lobby, his ghost car took control of the car in the wet, decided it was time for a pit stop, and he put on completely the wrong tire. So had to come in the very next lap, fix it, and then got disconnected again and just left. So don't get disconnected and leave the ghost car in control in the wet, because it can do some pretty strange things. I've never seen a ghost car put on wets in the dry, but I have seen that scenario more than once, where a driver gets disconnected in the wet, and by the time they get back to their car, well, they find something they'd really not like to be in. We have a safety car, which is obviously fantastic for everybody at the rear of the field. Not so great if you were leading and your strategy was working out and everything was going according to plan. You just had to keep the car in a straight line, get it to the checkered flag. This just adds a bit of drama, adds a bit of spice, brings your opponents up on your gearbox again. And of course, we've only had one retirement. If we have another, well, we could have another safety car. And if we have a safety car late in the race, anyone with a penalty next to their name is not going to be very happy. We've only got the one penalty on our screens, and it's a 5-second penalty for Maggot, so I presume he got that at this safety car when he pits under safety car. Probably just speeding in the pits. He's going to serve that 5-second penalty at his next pit stop, or if he's able to finish the race, those 5 seconds will be added on to his race time, which means if he wants to hold on to the position he finishes in, he needs to be 5 seconds ahead of his next opponent. I also commentated, there's too many, I can't tell you which one there is, but I've also commentated on a race not so long ago where we started in the wet. About 2/3 of the race was in the wet, and we had absolutely no penalties on the screen. The last third of the race was in the dry, and I think we only had 4 drivers left at the end of the race without penalties. So that's what you see sometimes. If the guys are driving in the wet, they're a little bit more careful. They stay within those lines. They don't challenge the curbs or challenge the grass on the outside. They don't want to do any of that. They stay on the tarmac. But immediately as it dries up, as soon as it dries up, guys will start to use a little bit more of the racetrack, push the car a little bit more, get closer to that limit they were feeling in their practice runs. Oh wow, we've got people in the comment section asking for... Oh wait, I read that wrong. I thought they were asking for the return of the safety car, and I was like, no. Well, why? But then, it's actually bring back the rain. That would be an interesting one. I don't know if we've got a chance of that. Let's look at the skies. The skies look pretty grey. Are they blue? I don't know. This game should pay a little bit more attention. I can't tell the difference between a blue sky and an overcast sky. But if the rain were to come back, that would definitely spice things up. Chums takes over the lead of the race, but remember, he has not pit. He's got 11 lap old hards. He's on a very different strategy to all the cars behind him. Andres P2. The toy. I don't know how he got there, but he's in P3. Spike's P4, Boinky's P5, and Maggot. He also came into the pits, got a fresh set of hards. Maybe he's hoping to finish the race on that set of tyres. But he's down in P6, and he's the driver we just mentioned that has the only penalty in the field. So he needs to come through that field again to get back into the lead. And he's got that 5 seconds hanging over his head. So he's taken what would be a very impressive drive, and he's going to have to make it quite a spectacular drive. It's all over the back of Boinky, and soon he's going to start making up those positions. In the rain you don't have this ability, in the dry you do. It's called DRS. And obviously goes through on the inside. Does he? The AlphaTauri should have a good line for the next corner to come back at him. Ooh, I wonder if there was contact there, or if that was the internet giving us a shock. We've got a caution, and every time that happens, I get a shock. I think no, not again. Andres in the lead and sets the fastest first sector of the race. So he's on a quick lap, he's enjoying those mediums. Toy in P2 now coming under all sorts of pressure. Chums in P3 wants to get on with it, doesn't want Andres to get up the road and away from him. Spike's P4. We have Maggot attacking that Aston Martin. Wants to get past, wants to get up into the top 3. Knows he's got that penalty next to his name. Can't leave it till too late. Can't win it in the last corner, because that penalty will take everything away from you. Of course, we had a safety car, so DRS was not enabled on the last lap. It is enabled now. Aston Martin versus Alpine. And somehow a Mercedes stays in front, and things got messy, and we are so lucky for ghosting, because that would have been a complete disaster. As for Maggot, fallen to the rear of the field, and he's not going to be a happy man. We've now got Chums falling to the rear of the field, and folks, I think we've got a safety car. It says caution, but I'm almost certain. How is it that these guys drove around in terrible conditions, and the moment it gets dry, they're like, let's have a safety car? So I don't know if it's a safety car, but this has been an awfully long full caution, and there we go, confirmation, safety car. And well, if you pit under the previous safety car, hoping to have a lengthy run now, this confuses things a little. Surely most of the drivers will stay out. I think anyone's going to be coming into the pits. Everybody's got fresh tyres. The only man that had pretty worn tyres was Chums, and those were 13 lap old tyres. We do have 2 cars coming into the pits. One is Spikes, Tiley Boy, and Skull. 3 cars coming into the pits. We've had the 2 retirements, Chums and Moller. Victory, well, I don't know how to read that all of a sudden. Rockstar has not gone up into P11 just yet, so I think he was a lap behind. Another problem we see, I wouldn't say it's a problem, it's annoying. If you're a driver at the front, this will never bother you. But if you're not that quick, and you do long races, the safety car very, very seldomly lets you overtake the field if you're a lap behind. if you're a lap behind and you have a safety car, you're basically stuck there for the rest of the race. So everybody else may get a free pit stop, may take advantage of the safety car, you're still going to be a lap behind. Luckily for me, last week Friday, safety car saved me from the leader. Safety car literally came out and cancelled out a blue flag. I had blue flags, suddenly they went away, we were under safety car and I was able to run off into the distance. It felt so good to leave the leader behind. Yeah, just confirmation there, logic saying speeding in the pit lane. 5-second penalty. Hopefully it doesn't come back to hurt him too much. We now see 2 penalties on our screen. One is for Maggot, 5 seconds, that's the one we mentioned. But now Spikes, one of his main competitors in this race, he's now also picked up a 5-second penalty. So the guy's just really desperate to get into the pits, pushing it to the limit. Let's just bring back your tire screen so you can have an idea of who's doing what, who's pitted when. This is the second safety car, of course, so you can see there everybody in the top 6 on virtually the same strategy. 7-lap old tires, mostly on mediums. 3 of the drivers, well, pretty much split mediums and hards, but they all came in under the previous safety car. Then we've got a handful of cars at the back, which you can see they came in under this safety car. So we've got a few guys with very out of sync strategies. What this safety car will do is it will bring everyone back together, and everyone at the back, well except for the lapped car, will have an opportunity. And when you're in that train of cars at the restart, anything can happen. And if there's action in front of you and you're the car that can keep your nose clean, I've seen guys have amazing restarts. Wait now, Andres. Rakwa's in P2. Detoy P3, Ace of Base P4, Gotsi P5, Boinky's P6, Maggot. Ooh, Maggot coming under pressure. What is that? That is an Alpine behind him. That's the Alpine. We all know who that is. That's Maggot. Maggot in P7, and he's pushing Boinky's. He was pushing Boinky's not so long ago. This AlphaTauri will be sick of seeing that Alpine in its mirrors. It's up the road. Gotsi having a good race now. Puts the second Ferrari up into the top 5. Ace of Pace, he wasn't having a fantastic race. Now all of a sudden he's up into P3, and that's what safety cars can do. They come in, they mix things up. Spectators might not like it for that 2 or 3 laps of following the safety car, but what it does afterwards is it creates all sorts of opportunities from something that already looked like it was written in stone. I've seen a driver in P2 that was 18 seconds behind a very dominant leader who had a late safety car, and he got him at the restart and won the race. So you could be the quickest driver, but the safety car is always that determining factor. Had another, oh my goodness. Well, it says caution, but folks, I'm going to predict it again. I think we're about to head into our third safety car of the evening. Lap 25 of 36. This will probably, hopefully, be the final safety car of the evening, but we didn't have much of a restart, did we? I'm trying to get into some sort of a rhythm in this commentary in this comms box, and I'm really struggling every time I get a bit of a, and this is happening, and this is happening, and oh no, we have a safety car. Well, that does mean we only have 9 remaining runners in the field, and that means that everybody who's able to keep their car in the race, everybody who's able to get to the checkered flag, you will pick up points. We no longer have a car that is a lap behind. So just the 9 runners, and all 9 of those runners are going to be awfully close together at the restart with only a few laps remaining. And hopefully that was just a spark coming up from the car. I thought I saw something for a moment, but I haven't seen it happen again, so hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully it was just a spark coming up from the car. I just saw this little thing flash across the screen, and I was like, wait, was that? Surely not. Imagine if rain were to come back now. I think that would be fantastic. In fact, spice it up a bit. Rain comes, we only have 2 or 3 laps of the Inter, and then it really comes down. Do you try finish on the Inter, or do you go for the wet? I suppose this is what happens when you have too many safety cars. You start making up virtual races of virtual races. Well, way too many safety cars, guys. Commentator's losing touch. Of course, if you watch the intro to the race, I showed you 3 famous overtakes here in Zandvoort. If you watched the first one was not from recent times at all. It was from 1982, and it was a pass from Patrick Lambert on Nelson Piquet. And at that point in the race, it was a fight for P2. But what was interesting about that fight was later on in the race, Lambert in the Ferrari would go on to finish P8, 1 lap behind, while Nelson Piquet would go on to finish P2 in that race. Nelson Piquet was obviously the defending champion. And just as reference to how different F1 engines were back then, obviously that was the previous turbo era. So the Ferrari was a V6 turbo, but the Brabham was a 4-cylinder. It was a 4-cylinder turbo, a 1500 4-cylinder turbo. That's what it was. And that engine actually won the championship in 1981. Today they're about, I think they're a 1600 turbocharged engine, 1600 V6 turbocharged engine. But what those cars were pushing out back then was simply way too fast for its era, and way too fast for its safety features. I am speaking of an era before I was born, but I suppose I've gone back and watched way too many races. Had to go back and look at the early 80s, because the 80s is the era my dad said that Formula 1 died when Schumacher left. So yeah, well, can't get him to sit down and watch a race these days. Andres leads the way from the toy at the restart. Ace of Pace P3, Gotzi P4, both Ferraris in the top 4 positions. Tylee Boy in P5. He spent most of his time outside of the top 10. Now he's in P5. That's what a safety car can do. Spikes, we know he's fast. He's at the rear of the field in P6. Going to be looking to make his way through the field. He's got a fresh set of softs, and that means he's going to have a lot of bites. He's going to have a lot of pace, a lot of grip. He's going to be able to have more traction than those two leaders. Andries and Detoy, they're on the medium compound and they're 12 laps old. So everyone at the rear here is going to give them a handful. Maggot at the rear of the field in P9. Also fresh set of softs. I was wondering why these gaps look weird. There we go, that looks a little better. Andries leads the way. Ooh, we've had, is that a retirement? No, it's not. I think it's just cars switching positions. Got a bit worried there. This race has frightened me one too many times, and now I'm feeling a little bit anxious. Gotzi P5, Spikes P6, but he's coming under all sorts of pressure. He's got a Haas behind him, he's got Boinkies behind him, and he's got Maggot not far down the road. We know when he catches up to these cars, he's not going to want to waste any time behind them. So you don't want to be the car at the back of the queue, you want to get on with it. And that's exactly what the Alpha Tauri is trying to do. He doesn't want to be at the back of that queue. He's seen enough of Maggot. He's defended from Maggot enough. So he gets a bit of a cushion between him and Maggot. Gets past Rakwa. Moves up into P6. Spike still P5. Didn't see what happened there, but Andries, that's what we saw when we saw a car fall into the rear of the field. Briefly I thought another safety car was going to be activated, but I just thought it was cars trading places. But suddenly Andries has fallen to the rear of the field. And he's in P9, 13 seconds adrift. Let's have a look at that Ferrari. I'm not quite sure what's happened there. Andries is in P9 at the rear of the field on used mediums. So it's not like he even came in and made a recent pit stop. Surely this is not right. What is going on here? Well, Ace of Pace. I'm just going to commentate according to my timing screen. I'm not sure what happened. Ace of Pace leads the way. Tiny Boy P2. Spikes P3. This field has swapped. Obviously Boinkies on a fresh set of softs. Rakwa on a fresh set of softs. Maggot on a fresh set of softs. He's coming through the field now up into P7. We said he's going to catch the back of that queue. He's now caught the back of the queue. Look at that. Rakwa's going to come under all sorts of pressure pretty soon. And all of what I'm saying, I told you, as soon as I get psyched up, as soon as I get into a rhythm, well, there's things I could say, but we're on a stream. This is now the 4th safety car of the evening, if I'm not mistaken. We also had one virtual safety car, I believe that was on lap 2. 5 times this race has been interrupted. More impressive stat that the virtual was in the wet, but the 4 full safety cars have been in the dry part of the race. Seems like these guys drive better, drive properly in the wet. You guys are wishing, the tier 1 guys are wishing for the safety cars of Wednesday night. Tell me, do you just wish for the safety cars, or would you have preferred that race dried up, or did you enjoy the full wet race? How do you guys feel about a race wet, start to finish? I suppose it's easier than a race with changeable conditions. Again, I just see a flash on my screen and I wonder, I hope it's just the computer being silly. Because if we did see rain with 2 or 3 laps to go, we'd have a very interesting scenario. Pace. He's now suddenly in a very strong position. We've still got Andres trailing at the back, so we're going to get another lap behind the safety car. Start lap 32, so that means when we start the next lap, which will probably be the restart, it's going to be lap 33 of 36. We're going to have a 3-lap sprint to the end. As the pace has relatively fresh softs, they're not as fresh as, I suppose, Gotsi, Detoy and Andres. They've got brand new softs, but Andres does have a relatively fresh set of softs. He is in the lead of the race. He's only got 3 laps to defend. He's going to have a full battery, and we could see a situation where find himself on the podium where not so long ago, well folks, I wasn't going crazy. It's happening. I don't know how long it's going to take for the track to change. I don't know if the guys are going to need them, but those are raindrops. See, I have no weather information, so if you were watching earlier on in the race and you watched my my little prediction of what if rain came back, well, it's happened. It's happened, and Ace of Pace would have been thinking to himself, wow, this is brilliant. I've just got to do 3 laps at the end of the race, defend for 3 laps. Even if I lose a position or 2, I'm still going to get a podium out of this. And suddenly raindrops fall, and of course the longer they spend behind the safety car, the longer the track has to evolve. If they were racing around at full racing speed, they could get on with this and maybe finish the race before intermediates are needed. But while they're traveling around at this speed, we could see a situation where the last 2 laps or so are going to be quite the handful. At the race restart, we ride with Ace of Pace. He leads the way. Tyler Boy P2, Boinkies P3. These drivers have been at the back of the field, the middle of the field, and now they're at the front of the field. So many safety cars, so many mix-ups, so many pit stops. Andres, the first man to react. Look at that, Andres is on a set of intermediates. He knows he's at the back of the field. He knows he needs to throw the dice, needs to try something different. And that's exactly what he's done. He's going to jump onto the intermediate, and he's going to hope that this track evolves very quickly and the entire field needs to jump into the pits. Hopefully that will be the case. Let's have a look at Ace of Pace. He's the leader. Let's have a look if he's looking like he's having any sort of struggles on track. Not quite hitting the apex there. And if he's just starting to feel it, it'll be very interesting to see all of these cars coming in with approximately 2 laps remaining in the race. Everybody coming out with what I assume is a fresh set of tyres. I wonder who's got an extra set of softs. I'm pretty sure everybody's gone through their softs at this stage. Just talking about what a good race the Ferraris were having. Well, now they're at the rear of the field. On the last lap, Andres came into the pits, put on a set of Inters. He's now 20 seconds adrift from the rest of the field. His teammate, Katozi, has now done the same thing. Sorry, it was Katozi that had the Inters. Now Andres has done the same thing. He's come in and put the intermediates. So the two Ferraris are out on intermediate tyres. So if the track does evolve, if the track does change, those cars will be the first to figure it out. You'll see that 20 seconds start to drop dramatically. But what do the drivers do with such a short time period remaining? Are you confident enough that you can get the car around till the finish in these conditions on slicks, or are you going to have to come into the pits and hope things don't get mixed around too much? Look how close that top 5 is. If you come into the pits and Maggot decides to hold on to track position, he may very well win the race. So surely nobody. DRS. What? There we go. So Ace of Pace leads the way, Tiley Boy P2, Boinkies P3, Rockwell P4, Detroit P5, Maggot P6. Then we have the two Ferraris, the only two cars on intermediates, but they 20 seconds adrift from the rest of this field. And there will be no pit stops. Surely everybody can get their car to the end. Hopefully we just don't have a handful of retirements, because these are not great conditions. These guys will be trying to get to the end. They'll still be trying to lobby for position in conditions they really should not be messing around in, especially when you're on the wrong tire. There's a lot of spray. There's a lot of spray. But surely we're not going to see a full pit lane on lap 36 of 36. Everybody's just going to have to go around and deal with softs in the wet. You can see the progress the Ferraris are making. Unfortunately, they would have loved this to have happened 5 laps ago. Saw the gap was 20 seconds at the start of the lap, at 17 seconds at the end of the lap, so they're finding 3 seconds a lap on those inters. But you can see Ace of Pace has gone over the line for the final time, lap 36 of 36. Going to start his final lap. Wonder if these guys will just be crawling around, but you can't crawl too much. It's going to be someone behind you that's not crawling. Going to lose a late position, going to kick yourself. No one there in the top 6 needs to worry about any penalties damaging their race, because no one has penalties. It's crazy how we had 2 wet stints in this race, 4 safety cars, and all 4 safety cars happened when it was dry. That's quite the stat. People drive worse than they drive. Ace of Pace leads the way. Remember, he was in P12 out of 13 drivers not so long ago. He's lost that position. He's lost the position late in the race. Lap 36 of 36. Boinkies now in the lead of the race. And that's how it's gonna. We've got a car gone sideways into the wall at the back there. That is Maggot. I didn't even give the winner any broadcast time there. Apologies. Boinkies goes over the line to take the victory. Ace of Pace P2 and Rockwell making up the podium. I was distracted by the car that flew off into the pit wall. Well, Maggot taking what looked like victory to a decent handful of points, crashing into the pit wall on the start finish line of the final lap. Rockwell picks up driver of the day. Good drive by the Haas driver. There are your podium sitters. Don't slip, don't fall. There we go. AlphaTauri ahead of Red Bull. It just doesn't look right, does it? So there are your official results. After all penalties have been added up and done, Boinky wins that race. Fantastic job. Doesn't get the fastest lap, so just 25 points. Fastest lap goes to the man who finished P2, Ace of Pace, so he'll get the extra point. Goes home with 19. Then Rockwell, he finished in P3. Tiley Boy P4. Toy P5. They were followed by Andres, Gotzi, Maggot, Spikes. Some of these cars are actually in the DNFs column. Maggot was the last car to finish, even though he crashed on that start-finish line. And then the DNF column is a little longer than you'd expect. Spikes, Skull, Victory Star, rather Rockstar, keep on saying that wrong, Chums, and Moller. And remember that stat, because that's a damn good stat. We had 2 wet stints in the race and 4 safety cars. You'd assume the rain had something to do with those safety cars. No, it didn't. All of the rain came in the one dry part of the race. All of the safety cars came in the one dry part of the race. It's quite insane. I think the guys just drive better in the wet. I think they're just more careful. Folks, I want to thank everybody who joined me this evening, everybody who joined the race, and what a race it was. Monday night we had a full intermediate race from start to finish. Looked like we may have had a repeat of that tonight. At the start it was intermediate, went on to dries. The guys had to finish at the end in intermediate conditions on soft tyres. We also had 4 safety cars and a virtual, so we had a bit of everything tonight. Different compounds, different conditions, and a safety car that was determined to wreck those the drivers that were currently leading. The safety car just wanted to wreck them, and at the end that's exactly what it did. Again, I want to thank you all. Thank you very much for joining. Quite a few of you were here tonight. If you haven't left a like on the video, leave a like on the video. Let me know if you enjoyed it. And of course I'll be back tomorrow night for DRS, and then again on Sunday night for SKR. Hope I will see some familiar names. Hope I will see you all back tomorrow night or on Sunday. And until then, let's hope for no rain tonight. And cheers.